Hi, I'm Renos Vakis, and this is Accelerating Development Ideas for Impact. We're bringing you groundbreaking research from the World Bank's Institute for Economic Development, powered by AI. Think of this as your shortcut to the ideas shaping our world. Ready to get started?
Well, thank you for the introduction, Renos. When we think about Ukraine's recovery, the first things that come to mind are often physical, like rebuilding roads and bridges. But a recent paper suggests there's a much more complex question beneath the surface. It asks, how do you restart the economic engine itself in a way that truly encourages new ideas and stronger growth?
That is the critical question, and the research provides a really clear diagnosis. It finds that over the last decade or so, Ukraine's economy has, and I'm quoting here, drifted into a low dynamism equilibrium. In simpler terms, strong, productive businesses face roadblocks, while weaker businesses often survive for too long. The result is an economy that delivers far below its potential.
Right. And on our show today, we're going to dive into the findings of a recent World Bank working paper titled Engineering Ukraine's Wirtschaftswunder. That's a powerful title. For our listeners, what does that German word Wirtschaftswunder actually mean?
It translates to an economic miracle, and it specifically refers to West Germany's post war recovery. The paper describes it as a productivity driven economic transformation. It was this period of swift, dramatic improvement in their economy.
An economic miracle. So the paper is laying out a roadmap for something similar in Ukraine. We'll look at three things from the research. First, the diagnosis of this stalled engine. Second, the underlying causes. And third, what it suggests is the most effective solution. So let's start with that diagnosis. What does this low dynamism actually look like on the ground?
Well, the paper paints a very clear picture of a system that has lost its momentum. In a healthy, high performing economy like the United States, you see a process economists call up or out. New businesses either scale up quickly or they exit the market altogether.
Making way for new ideas, new firms.
Exactly. And in the early 2000s, between 2002 and 2007, Ukraine's economy looked a lot like that. It had vigorous up or out dynamics, very similar to the US. But then that cycle broke down.
Curious. What happened?
The momentum stalled. Between 2008 and 2013, the business dynamics flatlined and started to look more like the stagnation seen in Mexico. And after 2014, it got worse. The forces of what we call creative destruction were choked off, and young firms barely grew over a decade. The pattern became strikingly similar to India's chronically sluggish business lifecycle.
Wow. So it's a story of a clear regression over time. And what are the consequences when that happens? When firms just flat and stay?
The consequences are huge because the market stops sending the right signals. The crucial link between a firm becoming more productive and that firm actually expanding its employment, that link weakened after 2014. Innovation no longer guarantees expansion. And at the same time, market concentration has been rising.
Meaning fewer, bigger players are dominating the market.
That's right. By 2019, the top four firms in manufacturing industries accounted for over 50% of total sales. That's up from about 48 or 49% in the early 2000s, and it's notably higher than the roughly 44% you see in the United States.
So the core problem, as the paper says, is that the economy just isn't rewarding performance. Which brings us to the causes. If performance isn't being rewarded, then what is? What's holding the system back?
The research points to what it calls market power without performance. A key example of this is the role of state-owned enterprises, or SOEs. The study finds they tend to grow more slowly and innovate less. But, and this is the crucial part, they still retain their market share.
That sounds counterintuitive. How are they managing that if they're less productive?
It's because they are entrenched. The data is really stark. SOEs are heavily overrepresented among the least productive firms. Between 2014 and 2019, they accounted for about 13% of all sales in the lowest two productivity quintile.
13%. And what about at the top end, among the most productive firms?
That's where the story gets really clear. In that same period, SOEs contributed only 1% of sales in the most productive quintile. They effectively crowd out more dynamic private businesses, occupying market space that could be used by more innovative firms.
So they're a roadblock. The paper also mentioned something surprising about foreign direct investment, or FDI. We usually think of that as a good thing.
And it can be, but not all investment has the same effect. A lot of Ukraine's FDI comes through tax havens, and the research suggests this is often round-tripped domestic capital. Basically, local money that's been sent offshore and then brought back into the country to get the benefits of being labeled as foreign.
And what does that kind of recycled capital do to the economy?
It appears to suppress competition. The data shows that industries receiving FDI from these tax havens have significantly lower business dynamism. The average new firm entry rate in those industries is only 6.9%. In industries with other genuine types of foreign investment, it's 9.4%. That's 27% less entry.
So we have a stalled engine, and we know what's clogging it. This brings us to the solution. The report talks about unleashing creative destruction. What does that mean in policy terms?
Creative destruction is that up or out cycle we talked about, where new productive firms replace less efficient ones. To see how to restart it, the study used a quantitative model to test two different policy paths.
Okay, what were they?
A was about supporting new and small firms directly with things like credit access or startup subsidies. B was about limiting the power of the incumbents, using stronger competition rules, restructuring those inefficient SOEs, and removing regulatory advantages for connected firms.
And which path delivered better results?
The second strategy delivered better results. It wasn't even close. When the protections for incumbents were removed, the whole system became more responsive. Productive firms scaled more quickly, new firms entered more often, and innovation increased.
So it's not just about helping the startups, it's about clearing the path for them first. Is that the main takeaway?
That is the absolute key. The report found that support for new firms only really worked when the markets were also open and competitive. Without that, small firms remained boxed in. As the paper says, they entered, but they did not grow.
Is there a real world example of this approach working?
There is, and it's a powerful one. West Germany's recovery after World War II, its Wirtschaftswunder, wasn't just about receiving aid. It also included bold antitrust reforms. The breakup of industrial monopolies was a key policy that expanded innovation and boosted productivity. It shows this path has been successfully taken before.
So, to summarize this for policymakers who might be listening, the diagnosis is a stalled, low dynamism economy. The cause is entrenched incumbents who have market power but poor performance. And the solution, the necessary first step, is to discipline those incumbents and foster real competition.
That's the blueprint. The report ends on a really powerful note. It says that post-war periods create space to reset the rules. Ukraine can use this moment to build a more open and competitive economy. It's a choice, and the data suggests a clear path forward. Over to you, Rinos.
Thank you for joining us. You can find the full report on our website. Just follow the link in the description. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know about upcoming episodes. And before you go, how do you plan to put what you learn into practice? And what topics you'd like us to explore next? We'd love to know. Until then, goodbye.